If we've made it to episode 5, I just want to say for the millionth time, thank you guys so much for all of your love and support. I cannot thank you guys enough. The fact that I've made it to episode 5 with every single episode, over 100 views, over 100 subscribers, which to some is a small number, but for me, starting from 0 is amazing. It's making me very happy that I am able to use my voice and my platform to get this story out there, both Reese and mine, as well as, in this episode, some of yours. And, I think about it often, what direction I want to take this in. And, I'm going to continue my story. I'm going to talk about myself. But what I want you guys to understand, as well as what I think about often, is that this is not about me and you. This is not even about me and you and Reese. This is about something so much larger. This is about something that people need to raise awareness for. I know for me personally, I've had my own experiences, and I've had friends that have had experiences where we end up in domestic violence situations. And unfortunately, a domestic violence situation led to the death of my brother, which makes me so passionate about speaking out and about speaking on how it affected me as a person and as an adult and how I navigate my feelings through my trauma. But more importantly, this happens every day in our own backyards. And it's a problem for several reasons. One being the system. How is it that my brother could be brutally murdered at the hands of both my mom's abuser and his, and serve less than what some serve for a drug charge, and is out on the streets? How is that possible? Which raises a bigger issue. How do we have a system that allows that to happen? Right? Following that, we have an issue with the tolerance of it under our noses. We all know somebody who's put their hands on a female. We've all sat in a room with them. We've all swept it under the rug. And I hear it too often. Well, there's two sides to every story. Okay, there's no world where you can convince me that there's any logical explanation for a grown man to put his hands on a woman in any capacity. Now, if she's hitting the man, sure, restrain her, call the authorities. But to close fist punch on someone who physically is incapable of winning that battle, automatically, I don't care what she said, I don't care what she did, automatically, and excuse me, makes you a bitch. And if you're one of those people who hears those stories and your first thought is, well, what did she do? You're part of the problem. And how many times have we heard of a woman being in an abusive situation and the police do nothing? And in my brother's case, CPS was called and they did nothing. And now we have a dead child on our hands. So, in this episode, once again, I'm going to continue to read from my story. But at the end, the Q&A is going to be with 2 domestic violence survivors that I have spoken with that have allowed me to share some heart-wrenching footage from their own experiences. And I asked them some questions as domestic violence survivors, and I'm going to share with you their answers around those, as well as kind of discuss it and briefly touch on my own experiences, because those will come later in the story. But this is about so much more than me. It's about my brother and, him deserving justice and getting his story heard, but this is a problem. And there's so many things that could have been done to prevent what happened. What if CPS did their job? What if my mom left? Those things didn't happen. What if the person who did this, friends and family, held him accountable for being abusive to his girlfriend and his girlfriend's children? That didn't happen. So now at the very least, what if the justice system did what they were supposed to do and gave him a sentence that he deserved? That didn't happen. And my story is just one of many. You ever tell someone your story and they look at you like, damn, I would have never guessed you went through all that? I get that a lot. And every time I do, it just reminds me how well I've learned to mask it. But Allegra, you're so funny and bubbly. Yeah, no shit. You think I was just going to walk around carrying all the weight out in the open? That's the thing about survival. Some of us turn quiet, some of us lash out, and some of us, we learn how to smile and laugh through it. But if you've been close to me, really close to me, you've seen the cracks. I've been a mess. I am a mess. But I'm working through it. Ever since Reese passed away, my whole life has been in fight or flight. I mean, even before that. I was always in survival mode. But losing him, that shifted something in me permanently. I spent years protecting this person, looking out for that person, being there for people who needed me. But when I wasn't busy doing that, I was trying to protect myself. And when I was too exhausted to fight anymore, I leaned on men, thinking maybe they'd protect me. But they never did. I keep the fiercest guard up you've ever seen. Allegra, you don't know how to be soft, says yet another man who became one more person I needed protection from. I don't know how to be soft. Maybe I'm just not safe here. Not with you. Funny how that works. That's the perk of my hypervigilance. I find myself in these toxic situations, yet whole time I know what it is. Whole time I know what I'm in. And yet, because I'm so desperate to be loved, was, because I want to believe that this time will be different, the guard comes down. And every single time I regret it. That's the cycle though, right? My mom taught it best. The one that keeps repeating itself, shaping my choices, my reactions, the way that I move through the world. I didn't just wake up one day hypervigilant. I was made this way. Jay and Micah's medical issues, just a few of the many reasons that cemented that for me. Watching them suffer, watching the system fail Reese, living in fear as a child, it put me in a constant state of alert. I had to be on all the time. No room to relax, no room to just be. I had to anticipate every problem before it happened. And that kind of pressure, it doesn't just go away, it follows you. It followed me straight into adulthood, straight into relationships where I was still trying to save people. Still trying to anticipate the next disaster before it could break me. So yeah, if you ever wondered why I am the way that I am, this is why. And this is where a huge part of my story starts to take shape. My anxiety to this day runs deep. And I'm sure a lot of you have been listening to previous episodes thinking, well, duh. But I want you guys to understand, and I mean really understand. When my mom was locked up, things were better. And I mean that on all accounts. Structure, safety, space. I will never stop thanking my little village during that time period. But with high highs come low lows. We've talked about Micah and his diabetes, but Jay. What happened to Jay? Just to paint a picture, my brother Jay was adopted by my mother. His birth mom was addicted to crack cocaine and alcohol while she was pregnant with him. Before Jay could even take his first breath, he had already suffered so much damage. The alcohol abuse was so severe that he had to get a liver transplant at just 3 years old. Doctors always said he probably wouldn't walk or talk, and that if he lived past 7, it'd be nothing short of a miracle. To put some minds at ease, Jay's 32 now, alive and well, and absolutely walking and talking, a mile a minute at that. We are blessed that he's healthy, but it hasn't always been that way. Growing up, Jay had severe sensory issues, loud noises, bright lights, too many people. His body would shut down from overstimulation. It was like the world was too much for him at times. He'd cover his ears, rock back and forth, sometimes hum or sing to himself just to block it all out. And when it got really bad, his body would go completely still. He couldn't respond, wouldn't move, wouldn't blink. I'll never forget the time it happened so severely we had to call the ambulance. One minute he was overwhelmed, rocking, humming, breathing heavy, and the next, nothing. Still, unresponsive. I remember shaking him, calling his name, my heart racing, my mind spinning through every worst-case scenario. Was he breathing? Was he slipping away? We didn't know what was happening. We just knew it was bad. The ambulance came, sirens blaring, lights flashing, and suddenly I was the one who couldn't breathe. Jay was having seizures. And when my mom was away, they became semi-frequent. I remember the adults talking in hushed voices about adjusting his medications, trying this, trying that, anything to stop them. One time it happened at a store, right there in the parking lot. I just remember this overwhelming anxiety washing over me. My heart pounding, my stomach twisting, my hands going clammy, because Jay, who never stops talking, had gone silent. And that silence, that was my trigger. I don't think people understand what it's like to live in a body that never stops bracing for the worst. But as a little girl, it was my whole reality, my whole world. Imagine carrying that kind of fear, knowing what it feels like to have a brother who's here one day and gone the next. So when Jay would go quiet, I would panic. My eyes would lock onto him, waiting, begging internally for him to start talking again. Because if he was talking, he was okay. If he was talking, he was still here. And when he wasn't, I'd cry myself to sleep, praying to God he'd be okay. I'll never forget the times the ambulance had to come, the sirens screaming, the red and blue lights flashing against the wall, the adults rushing, talking fast, hands shaking, and me just watching. Holding my breath, counting every second in my head, wondering if this was going to be the last time I saw my brother. This is all very important, because even though these weren't my burdens to bear, in a way, they were, right? Day to day, it was the 3 of us, 2 immunocompromised brothers, and then me. My grandma always called me her little helper, and as a child I carried that title like it was my greatest honor. Looking back now, though, I fear it catapulted me into so many toxic traits. So much of my sense of accomplishment depended on what I provided, what I did for others. So much of my happiness was tied to validation. My love language became pouring into others, even when I got nothing in return. As a child, it taught me selflessness. As an adult, it became a problem. It trained me to be hyper aware of the people around me, constantly gauging their emotions, adjusting myself accordingly. I became deeply affected by other people's moods. Is he mad at me? Am I doing enough? Am I enough? My emotions weren't even my own anymore. If someone else is upset, I'd absorb it. If someone else was distant, I convinced myself that it was my fault even when I did nothing wrong. I searched for a reason to blame myself, because that's what I was taught to do. When you're the helper, when you're the mature one, when you're the responsible one, you don't get to just be a kid. You don't get to have meltdowns, you don't get to break down or have bad days or need someone to pour into you for once. You exist in service of the people around you. And when your worth is tied to how well you take care of others, you never learn how to ask for anything back. And this isn't just something that I feel. I see it. When I watch old home movies, all the other kids are lost in the excitement of the moment, tearing into their new gifts on Christmas, playing and laughing. Then there's me. I'm not sitting with them, not opening more presents. I'm cleaning up all the wrapping paper, making sure there's no mess, making sure my grandma is happy, making sure she's proud of me. And I think about that little girl and what she was being conditioned for. Because when you grow up believing that your worth is tied to what you do, how well you clean up, how much you take care of people, how much of yourself you give away, it bleeds into everything, especially romantic relationships. I grew into a woman who gave everything and asked for nothing, because love to me wasn't about receiving, it was about earning. I learned to equate love with sacrifice, how much I could do for someone, how much I could endure, how much I could take on before I broke, and I'd stay. Stay in relationships that drained me. Stay with men who took and took because deep down, I thought that's what love was, giving even when you're empty. Even now I have to fight that instinct, the instinct to prove my worth, the instinct to make myself small, to absorb someone else's emotions, to keep the peace at all costs. Because the truth is, I was never just the helper. I was a child, and I deserved more than to be the little girl carrying everyone else's weight. And if you think that's heavy, it just got heavier. In the 4 years my mom was away, my grandma ended up needing a knee replacement surgery. It wasn't something that could wait until she had more help, it was urgent. So she got the surgery. Everyone did what they could, but people have their own lives, their own responsibilities. And ultimately, the little helper stepped up. Because that's what I did. That's all I knew. I helped make dinner for the boys. I was 7, maybe 8. So it was mostly simple things my grandma had taught me. Grilled cheese, mac and cheese, whatever was easy enough for a kid to handle. I helped test Micah's blood sugar, prepared his insulin shots under the direction of my couch-ridden grandmother, checked her bandages, changed her bandages. I walked her to the bathroom when she needed it because she couldn't walk. And on the positive side, I can take care of anyone in any situation. Being forced to think on my feet and play the adult when I was still a child trained me to move quickly, to assess problems, to adapt. My problem-solving skills are impeccable. And in this situation, we had a problem. I was tired. I didn't want to rush downstairs every time she needed to use the bathroom. I wanted to play with my Barbies. I wanted to watch the Cheetah Girls in peace. Light bulb. We kept our bikes in the garage, and naturally I was nosy, so I always knew what was in there, every single item, where it was, what it was used for. And there was one thing I'd seen in there several times for as long as I could remember. A walker. So while my grandma napped, I snuck into the garage, grabbed the walker, and brought it inside. I think I even made her lunches a surprise too. I loved surprising her with things. Homemade crafts, little acts of service, anything to brighten her day. Because that's who I was. That's who I am. If you asked all my exes about me, they'd probably have significantly different experiences. But I can bet every single one of them would say that I'm thoughtful. I pay attention to what people like, what they don't, the little things they say in passing. I surprise them with gifts tailored just for them. I cater to their every need. Every holiday, every birthday, every moment, filled with things they wanted, things they needed, Things I just picked up on without them having to ask. Sounds like a dream, right? Yeah, for them. I think I pour into people like that because deep down I'm hoping, praying they'll take notes. That someone will finally see me the way that I see them. That someone will finally love me the way that I love them. But the world is cold, and people love to take. I don't think my grandma ever realized the pressure that she was putting on me, or how it would shape me. She just needed help, and I was there, ready to serve, to please, to make life easier for everybody around me. But there comes a point where you can't keep pouring from an empty cup. And that's something that I still struggle with. I give people my all because it heals my inner child to give others what I never got. Not realizing that all it's really doing is putting me in a position to be robbed of anything real. That day I found the walker, I thought I was solving a problem. I thought I was just making things easier for her, for me. But looking back, it taught me something that I didn't even realize until right now. You can still show love. You can still take care. You can still help. You can still pour into people. But you have to do it in a way that doesn't leave you empty. In a way that doesn't make people see you for only what you do for them, but for your actual value. When I woke my grandma up, lunch ready, the walker in hand, she was ecstatic. Now she didn't need me to get up for her anymore. For a moment, I could finally breathe. If you know my grandma, you know she hates sitting still. She's the kind of woman who, even if life knocks her down, refuses to stay there. The moment she could, she got back on her feet, adjusting to every new challenge as if resilience was woven into her DNA. Given everything I had endured in the past, this felt like a breeze. We chugged along, bruised, but unbroken. I missed my mom so much. I lived for those letters, handwritten notes filled with words of love, colored pictures, drawn just for us. I traced ink with my fingers, imagining her holding the paper, pressing her pen to it, thinking of me. And when I wrote back, I made sure my words were just as full of love and just as desperate to reach through the distance. Her phone calls were a lifeline. Even though they were rationed between my grandma and 3 kids, my grandma, the pro yapper, where do you guys think I get it from, always dominated the line. By the time that it was my turn, the minutes had slipped through my fingers like sand. Never enough, but I made the best of it. I remember helping my grandma put together care packages, little boxes of love sent through the cold and personal walls of prison. That kind of thing warms my heart, knowing I could give someone something they loved, even in a place designed to strip them of comfort. For my mom at the time, it was Take 5 bars. I remember our visits, my grandma would give us money to buy candy from the vending machines. I always spent mine on her. She couldn't just go to the store and get a Take 5 whenever she wanted, but I could. And that was enough for me. That's always been who I am, going without so someone else doesn't have to. Prison visits on Mother's Day were a strange kind of contradiction. The board games we played, the laughter we shared. It was an attempt to turn something so unnatural into something normal. I'd sit across from her, watching her laugh, watching the way her hair always stayed so long and shiny. And in those moments, I forgot where we were. I idolized her. She had overcome so much, but was still kind and soft and beautiful. I looked at her like she was untouchable, like she had conquered every storm and still found a way to shine. And the most important part, she never made me feel like I had to earn her love. Unlike with my grandma, because she needed me and my help, where I had to bend over backwards to be what she needed, to be seen. My mom just loved me as I was. That's why what's coming next is so important, so you can understand just how much it broke me. Growing up, I felt the weight of my reality in every classroom, in every interaction. Other kids had both parents, some just one, but me, I had neither. I remember missing school for a visit and coming back to kids crowding around me asking, "Where were you yesterday?" How do you look a group of elementary school kids in the face and say, "Oh, I was just visiting my mom in prison"? I already stood out. Mixed girl, frizzy curls in a predominantly white school district. And before you hit me with the, Allegra, you're so dramatic. Kids don't care about that. Tell that to the girl who looked me dead in the face after inviting everyone in our class to her birthday party except me. She made sure I knew why. Because you're brown. But that's neither here nor there. The point is, I was carrying so much. I was so different. I was navigating so much weight without either of my parents there to guide me through it. My grandma did her best. But she saw me as the most self-sufficient one. And because of that, her attention, her guidance, it was in higher demand elsewhere. My brothers needed her more. So I figured it out on my own. And through it all, I held on to the version of my mother that I saw in those visits. The version of her that made me feel safe, seen, and loved. Finally the day had come. My mom was home. For weeks we knew it could happen any day now, but my grandma, a master at keeping surprises, never told us the exact date. She wanted that moment to be pure, raw, unforgettable, and it was. I remember it like it was yesterday. The door opened and there she was. Not in prison uniforms, not in state-issued gray and blues. She was just my mom, in regular clothes, in our world again. I didn't think. I just ran to her, threw my arms around her, and held on so tight I could feel her heartbeat against my own. I had my mom back, and I wasn't letting go. For the next few weeks, I didn't waste a single second. Every ounce of free time I had spent by her side, every stolen moment, every laugh, every small piece of time we lost over the years, I wanted it all back. For the first time in what felt like forever, things felt whole. I could go to school and say, my mom this, my mom that. I didn't have to dodge questions. I didn't have to carry the weight of being different. I wasn't the kid whose mom was gone. She was here. It wasn't just me who felt the shift. My grandma, who had been holding everything together on her own, finally had another adult to lean on. She wasn't the only one carrying the weight of my brother's needs. She wasn't the only one stretched so thin. She could finally breathe. And me? For the first time, I could just be a child. I didn't have to step up so much. I didn't have to be as strong. I could just soak up the attention I had missed for so long. She was my world. My love for my mom ran deep. So deep that the thought of hurting her was unbearable. I remember one day, before everything fell apart, we were outside playing basketball. We were just laughing, passing the ball back and forth. It was light. It was easy. It was one of those rare moments where nothing else in the world mattered. And then, I threw the ball wrong. It happened in a split second. The ball hit her straight in the face. She started crying. I felt like my entire chest collapsed on itself. I had seen her cry in pain before. I knew what it looked like. I knew how it felt deep in my stomach. It triggered something in me. A guilt so overwhelming I couldn't handle it. I didn't even stop to say sorry, I just ran. I ran and hid because the idea of hurting her was unbearable. Because seeing her in pain did something to me. Because she was everything to me. Mom got a work-from-home job as a telemarketer, and hearing her voice in her room, confident, steady, and in control, became part of my daily routine. I'd hear her on the phone, pitching products to strangers, her voice flowing through the walls like background music. I knew her schedule to a T. I knew exactly when she'd be busy. I knew exactly when it was safe to open the door and crawl into her space. I knew exactly when I can just be near her. Because I wanted to be close. Because I was still making up for lost time. Because she was my world. And because without realizing it, I was holding on to something I wasn't ready to lose again. Until one day, I opened the door. She was on her cell phone. At first, I didn't think anything of it. Then something in her voice made me pause. I listened closer. Who is she talking to? And then I heard it. Muffled through the speaker, but unmistakable. A voice I'd never forget. No. It couldn't be. She wouldn't. Would she? So as prefaced in the beginning of this video, the debrief and the Q&A are going to be around some footage I am going to show you here in a moment. I just want to put a significant trigger warning on the footage I'm about to play. Some of it is probably hard to see and hard to hear. But once again, all of this is to get a message out. And I think that we can all agree that this is an important topic. So, I'm going to play each video. I will also be tagging the people's TikToks down below because I want them to be able to benefit from this community that we've created here at Yaps. All of you guys are so loving and supportive, and I'm sure both these women could use some love and support after being put through such horrible things. Moving forward, I am going to play some footage for you guys now. In the first video, this is somebody who I have seen a bunch of times out in public. I have seen her with the person who is doing those things to her, and I would have never known looking at them. And that's the point. You don't know. So this is why it's important to be kind to other people. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know why they're going through it. The other video, this is somebody who I connected with through her child, actually went to high school with me. And so we connected around kind of watching our mothers go through a toxic, abusive situation. And I'm going to be playing footage from her as well. I have so many things I want to say around both situations, but I'm going to wait till the end. We'll do a debrief because I don't want to end on such a heavy note with showing the footage. I want to show it and then have a little discussion behind it and hopefully end on maybe a little lighter note. I don't want to scare you guys away. I'll stop yapping. I'm so sorry. I know you guys are probably like, show the footage. I'm going to right now.
Keys.
I don't have your keys.
Why the fuck would you sit there and kick me?
I don't have your keys. Guess what? You want me to be like that? Well, guess what? Billy and Lex need to say, bitch! Leave me alone.
Hit me again! You want to throw hands? What?
Yeah? Record me. Watch.
Record it.
I'm
Getting gaslit, do you?
Oh, okay.
Do you?
No,
Do you? When
no.
I'm in your face, you ain't saying shit, are
Really?
you? Are you? Because look at you! Look at you! Look at the way you act! Look at you! Yes! I did leave and go fuck some 20-year-old. Yes! Yes, I did! And it was great! It was great. And then...
Dude, I don't want to be near you. I don't want to be around you. This is the shit I got to deal with. I'm getting sprayed with air freshener.
If anybody could
I'm getting
believe what
sprayed
I
with-
deal with and what I...
This is your daughter picking glass out of her foot. Crying because of the fucking window you broke.
She doesn't want to be around you!
Okay.
She doesn't! She doesn't!
Go!
You're
Leave!
you're a fucking loser! You're a fucking loser! Fat fucking piece of shit.
Got broken an hour ago. Those were here, and don't get the fuck out. You do not. My landlord's on the way over, so.
Who?
My landlord.
Oh, what the fuck is that got to do with me? You think I'm scared of your landlord? Do you think I'm scared of your landlord? Do you? Do you think I'm scared of anybody you're gonna bring my way? Anybody. Anybody. Anybody.
I will pick this up and fuck them up. Do you understand that? You understand that? Clean it up, bitch. Look at your boyfriend.
Get away from me. Get away from me. Get away from me.
This is who you're sticking up for.
Get away from me.
Bro, this is who you're going to fuck, right? And you didn't wear my cams.
This is mine.
This is mine. I bought it.
I bought it.
I bought it.
I bought
I
it.
got the
With
money,
my
but
money.
you didn't.
With my money.
You didn't.
Dude, you're not gonna
You're
rip clothes
not
off.
taking my shirt.
Stop!
Bro.
I'm
You're not
getting
taking my
dressed.
shirt
I'm
from this
leaving.
house. No.
I'm going.
Sorry.
Are you
You got
fucking
tons of
serious?
shirts. You got tons of
No, I
shirts.
don't.
Yes, you do. You're not
Are
taking
you
my
fucking
sweatshirt.
serious?
This is mine. I paid $100 for it.
I paid for it. With my money. With my money.
Go to jail.
With my money.
Go to jail.
Jarring, right? Well, imagine being a child and having to watch your parent go through that. Think about how that would affect the way that you process things, the way that you see the world. That's another issue. Like I said earlier, this happens every day, right in our backyards. And a lot of people have kids. So a lot of children are being subjected to this. A lot of children are getting caught in the crossfire. In the first video, you hear him threaten her children. That's why insert children's names aren't going to be safe or whatever the idiot said. That is insane. That is insane. But that is the level that these situations get to. That is the space that these people are in. They have to be some sort of deranged to be behaving that way in front of children. So I'm going to touch on the Q&A that I did with this woman. Once again, she'll be tagged below, her TikTok. Go show her some love and support. I mean, she spent 3 years with that guy. Imagine undoing that damage. Okay, so I did ask her a few questions. This is from the girl from the first video. The first question is, looking back, was there a specific moment when you realized what you were experiencing wasn't love? Her response, looking back, the moment that I knew it wasn't love was when he had put his hands on me after I had caught him cheating on me for the very first time. The more I had questioned him, the angrier he became. And that is when he choked me for the very first time, leaving bruises around my neck that I had to come up with an excuse for when others noticed it. I feel like when you're in it, it's so hard to it's not hard. We know that your partner putting their hands on you obviously isn't love, but it's like when you're in it, it's so hard, you know? Number 2, what was the hardest part of leaving or trying to leave? And what do you wish people understood about that process? The absolute hardest part about the leaving process was the fear that had been instilled in me. All the threats that he had made about my children and my family would suffer should I ever think about leaving, and I think that was something that I wish people understood. And, I've been in my own situations where I agree with that. When you're dealing with someone who's so unbalanced and unhinged, for me personally, it was easier to stay. Because I would leave and now my phone's getting blown up. I would leave and now he's showing up my house. I'd leave and, I have to block this number and that number. It was just easier to just be in it. I know that sounds crazy, but it's when you're in it and you're dealing with it, sometimes it just feels like, I don't want to have to go through. And you care about this person so much. So it's they're begging me, they're blowing up my phone, they're showing up to my work, they're calling my work phone, they're texting me over and over and over and over again. It's such a cycle that's so easy to get caught in, especially when there's fear instilled. How has the trauma affected you in ways people may not expect? 3, the trauma has affected me in so many different ways. One thing people truly don't expect is the overwhelming sadness and grieving there truly is. Essentially grieving the loss of not only my partner, but my best friend. Almost everyone thinks that I should just be angry or vengeful, but in fact, I'm sad. And I would say that's real. Like, yeah, that person sucks, but even if they suck 90% of the time, there's that 10% where there's a reason why you're with them, you know? And then when you're in such a toxic situation, you think about how it started, and it always starts off so good. And that's how they get you, right? Because they show you this version of themselves that's too good to be true. So every time something happens, whether it's cheating or something toxic, or God forbid they're putting your hands on you, they use that to dangle it in your face. Like, remember when things were good? We can get back there. And it's like, no, you can't. But all of this to say that you do two things to be true at the same time. You could love the person who's hurting you. You can care for the person who's hurting you. They could be your best friend. You do life with them every day. Abuse is not just black and white. It's not just, oh, they're hurting me, so I have to hate them. If it were that easy, nobody would be in this situation. 4. What would you say to someone who is in an abusive situation that isn't ready or feels unable to leave yet? Some things I would say to someone who is in an abusive situation is that it truly will never change. I truly believe after the first incident, the begging for forgiveness and claims of love, that it really would be the only time. It wasn't. And it will only get worse, much worse. That's the best thing to keep yourself and loved ones safe, is to leave and absolutely involve the authorities. And I would say agreed. Never gets better. And honestly, like, this is on such a serious, large scale. Even on a smaller scale, like, if you have to ask yourself if this is right, if you have to ask yourself if this person cares for you the same way you care for them, get out. It's not worth it. It can spiral into something so much more toxic and so much more unhealthy. And I think that, like, too often as women, it's, at least he's not doing this, because we've all had such negative experiences. Like, at least he's not cheating. At least he's loyal. Like, the bar's on the floor, guys. Seriously. And I agree. It always gets worse. What you allow is what will continue. Let's say that again. What you allow is what will continue. And that's on a large scale and a small scale. Number 5. When was enough enough, and why? What brought you the strength to finally leave? My enough was enough moment was when he brought an incident from behind closed doors into the public eye. He punched my car window in the middle of the road, screaming threats at me about not only myself but my family, spitting on me. He didn't care who was around witnessing it. He just did it without care in the world. And as he was bleeding profusely from his arms/wrist, he was calling my name out for help, the person he had just done this to so publicly. I've said this a million times, like, if you're my friend and you know me, and, like, I've obviously, like, seen other things people have gone through, and had my own opinions. And one thing I've always said and will always stand by is, if somebody is bold enough to act that erratic and be that abusive in public, you do not want to be stuck with them behind closed doors. The audacity behind that, the mental illness that you have to harbor to physically harm somebody or act that erratic in public is severe. And I always say, like, any man that's willing to act that way towards a woman in public, like, doesn't give a fuck. That is scary. That is scary. And then I just asked her if there's anything else that she'd like to add. And she just said, asking for help rather than in forms of friends, family, or even the authorities can be the scariest and most heartbreaking thing that at the same time. Something you would never expect you would have to do with someone you love, but it's the best thing you can do. I burned a lot of friendships and bridges with people because of this relationship, but they all still rallied around me when I finally got the strength to leave for good. That truly is a testament to how much people really do care. This is my 4th report to the police before they did anything. That's so disheartening. So leaving when you have the inner strength in yourself is truly the absolute best thing that you can do. I'm still coping with grief, anger, trauma, and blame. When things came out so publicly on social media, I was flooded with mixed messages. A lot of people blame me for someone else's actions, and again, I was sucked into the wormhole of beginning to believe that. But the reality is, if someone truly loves you, they will never, ever put their hands on you or threaten the safety of your children or family. I kept quiet for so long about the things that had happened to me behind closed doors for 3 years that I'm finally finding my inner strength to discuss or post about publicly, because even if it reaches one person to get the courage to leave, then it's worth it. Currently working on myself and self-love, self-worth journey. My self-esteem and self-confidence was shattered into the ground, and I'm finding out I'm a lot stronger than I ever gave myself credit for. And it all started with leaving. I encourage anyone going through domestic violence situation to please reach out to someone, anyone, before it's too late. I was lucky to be able to walk away. Some people aren't. No matter how many I love yous or I'm sorry, I promise it will never happen again, the person says it will never truly stop. No matter how much you love a person and think they will change, they will not. I was manipulated for 3 years into thinking this person loved me because they would tell me how much they did after each incident. But now I realize there never should have even been any incidents. I really loved him, but sometimes love just isn't enough. And with that, what she said is so true. Like, when people say before it's too late, they're serious. Like, look around. My brother was collateral damage, essentially, to a toxic relationship. Look at Chris Watts. You think that just there's signs. There's signs. You need to get out when the signs are there. When people show you who they are, believe them. It's about your life. It's about your children's life. She had children, and it's not worth it. Like, there's no love on the earth, number one, that you can't give yourself. And number two, that's worth having to go through such painful situations. And love shouldn't have to hurt you. When she said, this is my 4th time reporting to the police, this is why I'm doing this. That is ridiculous. How many times do we have to see a situation like this end in tragedy for people to take it fucking seriously? I mean, I get pissed. Like, I know that you guys are like, whoa, you're yelling. Yeah, it pisses me off. Like, how many incidents do we have to see? How many dead children that end up collateral damage to this bullshit? How many dead women? How many until we take this shit seriously? And the messages that she said she was getting from people blaming her, oh, well, you were crazy too. There's 2 sides to every story. Bullshit. You cannot call yourself a man and make the solution to your problem putting your hands on a female. I don't care. I don't care if she called you the most disrespectful name in the book. Leave. You guys always want to tell the woman, well, leave. If you don't like it, then leave. So tell him to fucking leave. If I'm making you so emotionally charged to the point of where you need to put your hands on me, leave. Leave the relationship. You're so upset that you want to put your hands on me right now? Why don't you leave? Society leaves it up to the woman. Oh, he hit you. You need to leave. He should have left before it even got to that point. He's the man. There's no world. There's no way that you spin it. There's not anything that a woman could do that would make it okay for you to put your hands on her. I don't care if she listen, I've been in situations where I have a mouth. Okay, if you know me, you know that. I was in a toxic situation with my ex. We were arguing. Listen, number one, I was in a very unhealed space. Number two, when you get me there, oh, babe, I'm digging. I am digging for the most disrespectful things to say to you because I want you to feel as hurt as you've made me feel. Again, I've been working on that. in therapy. And I try to not even put myself even in those types of situations to even have to have that type of reaction. But then, and people who know me, you guys know, even some of the shit that I've said, I'm like, damn, like, somebody said that to me, I'd probably, but no, like, but no, because you're a grown man. So be a man, walk away from the situation. There's no way you spin it that I'm going to be like, yeah, you should have beat her up. And for those of you that defend that type of behavior, that hang out with people like this, that even figure out a way to try to twist it one way, because I know the guy and he's cool. He wouldn't do that. Okay, he's fucking doing it. So let's see it for what it is. And it's part of the problem, right? Because far too often these men that are abusers walk around with people defending them who are trying to minimize what the situation was. That's why it keeps happening. There's no consequence. The police aren't doing shit. People around them aren't doing shit. Come on now. I don't get it. But moving on. This stuff is heavy. I want to be clear. You can expect for it to trigger some emotions in you every time you tune in. And that might even just because I said some real shit. It's not always going to be this heavy, but I want you guys to think. I want you guys to think about yourself and your growth and your journey. And I don't want this to just be some bullshit talking about nothing podcast. I appreciate realness. I respect realness. And I want to be different in the fact of the matter of I'm bringing something real, something raw. I'm making you feel real and raw emotions. I'm making you think. I'm helping you on your journey. There's so much of fake shit on social media these days, and I want to be the exception. I want to be the exception. So, like I said on my Instagram the other day, y'all will see the good, the bad, the ugly with me. It doesn't matter what heights this reaches. I'm always going to be authentically myself. You guys have heard me almost start crying reading my stories before. You guys have seen me crying on my Instagram story. That's real life. And that's what I'm here for. Once again, I want to thank you guys for sticking with me for 5 episodes. I need you guys to let me know. Do we like this? Do we like me using the Q&A to showcase other survivors, to raise awareness for other survivors? I want to know what your guys' key takeaway was from the story. I know in this episode I do touch a little bit more on like me as an adult. I'm slowly trickling that in there because it'll all make sense, I know I say it in every episode. I've gone through my own situations, and I'm looking forward to the day that I get to share that piece of me with you guys. But did we like that? Do we like when I kind of bounce back and forth between me now and me as a child? Like I really, really want your guys' feedback because I can't make this successful without you guys. And I appreciate you more than you all know. I don't want to keep you guys on here too long. I know you guys like it though. I know you guys are like, yeah, keep talking. But I can't because my throat already hurts. So I actually wanted to ask you guys about that. How do we feel about episode lengths? I know I did one last week that was longer. It was about an hour. Prior to that, it was like 30 to 40. So what are we feeling on that? Do we like the longer episode? Do we like the shorter episodes? Again, I need your feedback. You guys will help me find the little like sweet spot, the routine of what works and what doesn't.